All right. I would like to have someone could give a motion to come out of executive session. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All righty. There was some business conducted in session, and we have 2 resolutions and 1 motion that we'll be discussing later in the agenda.
But no action was
No
taken.
action. No action was taken. I'm
Executive
sorry. Yes,
session
thank you
or
for the
exempt
clarification.
session, and it'll all be done in open session.
Yes, correct. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. I know. Thank you, Joe. All right. I am going to make a change to the agenda. We have guests here today, and I want to welcome them from the Zinc 8 project. And they've been very patient waiting for us as we were moving through executive session. So what I would like to do is to move them up to the agenda, and then we'll resume the agenda at the chair's report after their presentation and discussion. So welcome, and it's all yours.
Okay. If you would like to come on this side.
Yeah.
So where do you want me to go? Over here?
That's fine.
Now, you can take the head of the table and pick up the bill.
So that's where the camera is too. There. Good morning, everybody. So it's really great to be here, getting used to the county and getting used to Ulster County, meeting new people, usually through Zoom calls, but also in person. I think it's Mark and Rob's probably 5th visit up to the county. And we're very excited by the process that we're currently into with the IDA. So first of all, I want to thank you for allowing us to come here today and to talk about our application. We've gone through 2 sessions, I think it is, with the pre-screening sessions. And thoughtful questions asked. It caused me to reflect more on what it is that we're trying to bring to the community. And I've really reflected on that. And so Zinc 8 is a unique technology that's been developed over about 12 years. And we have 23 patents. There's 7 in the line to be that we've applied for. And there's another 9 probably going to win over the next 12 months. The reason I say that is to let you know that what we do is unique. And what we do is that we create unique IP. So we're a very novel company. And so the technology is novel. It's not like we take other inventions and we put them together to make a different looking automobile. Our vehicle is completely different from anything else on the market. And it's been at least 12 years in this particular iteration. So a couple of things about the technology is that we are a long duration energy storage system. And we used to say that we would be anywhere from 8 to 100 plus hours. We're now 5 to 100 plus hours. And it's simply a factor of some of the competition, most notably over with lithium-ion, where the commodity prices have gone up enormously. So that in the lower hours, say 5 to 8, where we would say that that's not our most competitive sweet spot, it is now. So we're growing down into a market while we expand the market as well. It's not very often that you get a chance to do that. So for us, we have no thermal runaway. We are a 20-year battery. There's nothing in it that's exotic. There's nothing in it that can burn. There's nothing in it that off-gases. So in actual fact, our smaller battery, 50 kilowatt battery, could be placed inside a building, can be placed inside a hospital or a school, which is different than some of the other technologies. All of the other battery technologies bring something special to the drive for decarbonizing our environment. And they all have a role to play, some over with EVs, some with very large grid level, some at the housing level. So where we play is probably more at a grid level. We're not what I would call a residential product, except that when we work with a developer that's doing a multi-unit, and then we can plan the storage component into it to lower their electricity cost and hopefully also load shift from, like in New York City, the power through the day. There's still a lot of carbon generated power that's on that system. At night, it's usually mostly the baseline power at night in New York is composed of renewable. And so what we can do for certain customers is work with them and work with the utility, install a safe battery with a 20-year lifespan with the lowest cost per kilowatt hour that we can find anywhere globally on the market, and allow them to reduce their carbon footprint by using lower carbon producing fuel in the daytime that we take at night and we hold for them all day, and we release it when they need it, and that displaces carbon generated electricity. It also allows for greater a greater integration of renewables on the grid. So the grid in New York is, in different parts, not that great. In New York City, it's kind of scary. It's been tested a few times. Superstorm Sandy was one, and really started to turn the city's attention over to the fact that they needed to do something different there. And so they've been doing it. They've been doing it by a way of investments, utility investments, but mostly by public policy and state policy. Now the national policy has sort of caught up as well. So we're in a really good spot at this point in time. We've got a pre-commercialized technology which we're going to continue to develop. But we made a decision after working for a long time in and around New York, because New York's been very good to our company. Every major competition that they put out there dealing with storage, we've won, and including the Real Estate Board of New York and the Department of Buildings, the NYPA, and NYSERDA. So we are very much focused. By way of just a bit of background before I put it over to Jamie on the application, and I said this before and I want to say it again, is I grew up in a small coal mining town in Cape Breton, and thought everything was great until you moved away and figured out poverty is relative. Everybody was poor. Everybody was poor because it was the Dominion Steel and Coal Company that came in, and they extracted a resource, and what my grandmother would say is the only thing they left was black lung and widows. So there was nothing left back in the community. So I firmly believe, in my first speech in Parliament, I talked about this. I believe that that where you're given an opportunity on any type of industrial or commercial retail development, when somebody helps you get into their market, you have to give back. So it's a philosophy that I've taken into this company. We intend to, wherever we locate, and hopefully it's going to be in Ulster County, we intend to not just be good corporate citizens, but we want to be part of the community. That's how I was raised, and my entire public service is what I did. And we want to work to develop a workforce that has the proper training, that gets paid good wages, good living wages, that is able to participate in a profit sharing plan with the company, and also as employees, not just profit sharing, but also some of the programs we currently have would be expanded, where they would be gaining shares in the company as well. It's very complicated, but you start off with directionally, we're going to do this, and then you figure out how to do it. The federal government's programs that have come in, both the infrastructure program, but more recently the IRA, which is misnamed. It should be the Climate Act, because that's what it's all about. Thank you, Joe Manchin, for that one, changing the name. But this is major. There's no other place in the world that has put forward these types of programs. So the country is putting its money where its future is, and that is in developing a different economy, not based on carbon-based fuel generation, but renewables. And so once that one came in and we had a really good look with Deloitte, Jamie and his friends here, it became clear that we were going to locate our first major manufacturing in the United States. And I think that was kind of announced by Senator Schumer right here in Kingston one day. And so we said we got a lot of work to do, but this is where we'd like to go. So we're at that point in the development of our company. We got 59 employees. When I started, when I went with the company, took it over, about 3 years ago we had 14. And we are growing over the next 3 years. Our plan is to go up to about 298 employees over the 3-year period, with a 5-year goal of over 500. We've got a very defined, well thought out, well tested pathway to commercialization. This market for long duration energy storage is growing in a hockey stick curve. So it goes like this, then it starts and it goes up. And the flattening out we don't see yet, because companies and jurisdictions, regulatory jurisdictions, are still finding out how this can help. How does this fit? And they're putting programs in place to support that. So with respect to our company, we are going to locate in the U.S. We are working with the state of New York aggressively, and we have been for, Mark, 2 years? About 2 years. Because what I just said, we believe if we get something, we should try to give back, and New York has certainly been that for us. And we're hoping to make this county, if we locate here, a center of excellence for energy storage development. And these things develop kind of in nodules. So right now it's kind of interesting. I work with two of my biggest competitors. Had lunch with one of them last week. I'll have lunch with another one beginning of next year. And why do I do that? It's because we're all trying to figure out what that market is and how we can work together. So even my competitors are starting to collaborate. I'm a collaborator to see what is it that we can help each other with, because the market is going to be big enough for all of us. So we have put an application into the IDA. We've worked really well with your lawyer and with the team and some of the staff to understand why this is a place that we should look at. We are anxious to come to a conclusion so that we can get on with the business of building the business and also building jobs into, my guys are telling me to go faster, building jobs in the county itself. So with that, I'm going to put it over to Jamie. He's going to do the presentation for us, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
I'll take questions whenever you want, but I'll give this warm seat to Jamie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Powell. Good morning, everyone.
Good
Madam
morning.
Chair, thank you for having us, ladies and gentlemen of the board. So just to build on some of what Ron said, you know, it's I've had the privilege of working with these guys for a little over a year now on what's a really exciting milestone in the company's history. You know, looking to come into the U.S., build a manufacturing hub, engineering, bringing what they have so specialized into the U.S. and looking at the county as an option to do that. So, and New York State overall. So it's been a very exciting project so far, and just learning about the technology and how impactful it's going to be. Very, very interesting stuff. So, you know, as Ron said, the site's in mind. The company's looking at a location at I-87 Park, as we're aware, subject to the application that's been put forth. The idea that is like Ron said, to really create what could essentially be a hub for this type of technology that is going to be around for a long time. This is kind of the new, you know, not a redundant power, but it's support that our networks need, our grids need. You know, New York State has its own requirements, in New York City as well. Very strong market for this, and the fact that, you know, they're looking to do that in Ulster, I think it's going to have a really strong impact to the extent it moves forward, bringing jobs, bringing economic growth, and so forth. The application that's been put forth is essentially, like Ron alluded to, is covering what we're referring to as phase one. Obviously, the establishment of the company in the region, building out the facility, the creation of up to 298 jobs, about $14 million in capital investment. That would serve to at least initially address the market that the company has, you know, in its pipeline, essentially. As the products develop, as the capacity for the storage, you know, devices and so on will continue to grow, so will the company, as expected, as predicted, right? And this site particularly has some of that capacity. So when we're applying for this at this phase, again, it's for the startup, and it's to serve the initial market demand for their products. The site under consideration is 150,000 square feet, at least initially. There's some capacity of 50 to 150,000 square feet thereafter that you know, the company could potentially avail itself to the extent it continues to grow. From a timing perspective, you know, like Ron said, I think they're kind of in the short term looking to secure a site with an occupancy target of sometime next year, 2023, somewhere around 9 months from the time a lease is finalized and site secured. As per the application, they are pursuing under the IDA tax-exempt bond financing, as well as a sales and use tax exemption for the build-out and outfit of the facility. As far as the the need for the inducement, I mean, certainly it's around the project funding overall, the making the project financially feasible, and obviously we're all aware of the rising costs that just continue to rise as days go by. That together with finding the right workforce, which we feel is this is a strong community for that, getting those folks onboarded and developing that workforce, that will all go to supporting the company in that way. So I don't want to take too much time. I want to leave time for questions for sure. If there's been any questions, some of the board members we've met with already, we've been privileged to spend some time with and go through, like Ron said, the pre-screen of everything. But we'll certainly open it up to questions at this point.
So given the fact that the site has had various environmental issues in the past, I'm curious about your commitment to environmental stewardship and how we protect the surrounding community and its environment.
So I could initially touch on that, and then I'll turn it over to these guys. But I know a big point in their technology, as Ron kind of alluded to, was the zinc aspect of the technology, right? It doesn't have the same level of risk, or certainly from a thermal runaway, thermal fire kind of issue, and that came up. We had presented this project to the town of Ulster a couple of months ago, and that was actually one of the things that came up. But from that standpoint, just the risk, is minimal, I'd say, with having the raw materials that the company's going to be using. From an environmental standpoint, I think the risks are lower than some of the competitors. Some of the competitors' business are lithium ion, right? So it's a different storage process. It's a different manufacturing, handling, and so on. But that's not part of what this company's proposing to do. I don't know if there's anything further around that.
Yeah. So one of the when we go down our checklist of what are we perceive as the advantages in the marketplace. Number one is we don't do anything nasty.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any off-gassing in any of our manufacturing processes. We don't really manufacture. What we do is that we take components that are custom made for us, and they'll be made in the U.S. or in the NAFTA, the old NAFTA area, because then they qualify. Everything we've got, we can source in North America. Everything. So we don't have to worry about Russia. We have to worry about China and all the nasty things that they're doing over with weaponizing supply chains and stuff. So there's nothing environmentally that would cause a problem for us. So with some of the other battery types, they'll be using materials that will have off-gassing, and they'll put, everybody's got to be compliant, so they will spend money in putting containments in and things like. We don't have any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So zinc is plentiful. It's non-toxic. It's in a KOH solution, which is basically potash,
Okay.
and that is kind of what makes it all work. The other components we will be sourcing locally and within the state and within the NAFTA. So if there's any nastiness in that production, it's not going to happen on your site. And so environmentally, we're committed to be upfront on all of that, and we think that Ramboll is one of the engineering companies that we have, and they've done all the work on it, and they can reply to any questions. So on the environmental side of it, they've given us all green check lights and said, you're a good project.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Just to clarify, just to add to that, with Ramboll Engineering, our technology, we're really assembling and putting it together. We have an ability to not even store the chemicals for our
Yeah.
electrolyte on site. We can ship it dry and add the electrolyte there. Having said that, our electrolyte is benign. It's non-toxic and it's non-flammable. So we have probably one of the most benign chemistries with respect to our electrolyte. So we can ship it dry and add that at the site. So we don't even have a requirement to store massive amounts of chemicals to add to the batteries.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
This sounds like a great project. This sounds like the kind of project we should be getting behind and supporting.
we're pretty thorough, unless you tell me otherwise, during our pre-meetings, so no questions at this point.
All right. Thank you for coming down for your presentation. And I think the fact that there hasn't been too much discussion is that all the good work that happened in the pre-screen, those conversations, and just a really solid application that the board was able to read and fully understand. So thank you for doing that. Joe, can we move into the resolution at this point? Okay, great. All right. I would like to refer the board to your packets on page 94. And there you will find a preliminary inducement resolution for the Zinc 8 Energy Solutions project. You have read this prior to the meeting, but take just a few minutes, and then I will ask for a motion to accept this and approve this resolution.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Second costume? All right. Joe, I have to do roll call, correct?
Yes.
Diane Einen, yes. Lynn Archer is present. The vote will not count, but Lynn, if you would like to just weigh in.
No, I played the project over. Thank you.
Okay. Mike Ham.
Yes.
Steve Kelly.
Yes.
Rashida Tyler.
Yes.
Rachel Silverman.
Yes.
Costu Baha. All right. It is approved, and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. The resolution, we improved the preliminary induced, no.
No,
No.
there's no pilot on this job.
No.
So the sales.
This is to move forward with the public hearing, to set a date and time,
That's
and
right.
public notice for a
Thank you.
public hearing, yes. Yes, thank you so very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Look forward to being a resident of the community.
We do too.
Look forward to that, yes, thank you. Go back to the order of the agenda, which will be the chair's report. Just a few words. It has been, I think, 7 months since we all came together. And I was looking back on that, and it's just really been incredible. I think these past 7 months, we have come together as a new board. I think we have come together really well, and everyone is doing great work and working well together. We have transitioned into new staffing, and I want to thank Amber and Jay and all the staff there for stepping in and helping us out as we transition into our new staff. We're about to hire our new staff person. Governance has done great work in terms of our organizational structure to make sure that it meets the needs of this board, not only now but moving forward. And we just approved at least this resolution to move forward potentially with a new project. So I think given all the change and the transition, the board has done a really great job these past 7 months, and I'm looking forward to the new year as we finalize our staffing, and then also I'm sure we'll have a few new projects before us before too long into the new year. So I just wanted to thank everyone for that. Financials, accounting, and administration update. Amber.
So I'm actually pretty excited about this update because a lot of progress has been made. Everyone completed the mandatory ABO training, so thank you so much for making that so easy. All invoices are paid and up to date. The laptop has arrived. That's set up with Microsoft Suite. We've got Zoom up and running on it. The next step will be to buy the QuickBooks desktop version, get that up and running. We'll transfer everything from the online QuickBooks to the desktop. And then we will transfer all of the virtual documents onto the laptop. I plan to back it up on an external drive so that it's not all in one location. And we'll have them nice and neatly organized so they can be easily understood by anyone who comes on afterwards. The agency now has a telephone number, which I'm very excited about. So
With the voicemail.
we were not able to get the old telephone telephone number. But this one I think is very easy to remember, easy to dial, so I'm happy with the number. It's also not tied to a specific person or location. So anyone with the Zoom app will have access to answer the line, and it also sets business hours, and it has a voicemail system. So I think it's a really great solution for this particular agency.
And the number is?
845-585-1230.
Oh, that is a good number.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
So today before you, you have the shared service agreement. This will allow the IDA to invoice the CRC for expenses that the two authorities share that can't be easily separated or distinguished between the two agencies. So examples of that are insurance, cybersecurity insurance. There's a clear 5% that's stated within the shared service agreement. So that will clean up a lot of the reporting and accounting aspects of this like related party relationship. So I think that will be a really positive thing to do before the end of the year, and it will be retroactive. The annual reporting forms ready to go out to open projects. This will allow the agency to complete their ABO required project reporting, and that deadline for open projects will be January 31st. And then we'll talk about site visits later.
All right. Moving into the committee reports and audit, if you go to page 8 of your meeting packet, low-key Brill reports, you'll see October and November reports, essentially for Innis and Romeo Kia. Innis essentially has no activity going on the site in October and November, so you will see there's nothing reported. And then Romeo Kia is on target and fully compliant with their audit with Low-Key Brill for their site visit. So that's the audit report. Finance, we talked about the shared services agreement, Amber. Joe, do we actually have in our packet, do we have a resolution that we need to approve that?
I would suggest a voice vote for
Okay.
this, yes.
All in favor of approving the shared services? Motion, I'm sorry. Second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All righty, thank you. All right, governance.
Thanks, Chair. So governance met this last week. Now that we've got through the organizational staffing, the admin, those letters you want to put together. We're focusing back onto housing a little bit, okay? Well, a lot of it. That's going to be the big one. So we met the other day, just in a nutshell, and I still haven't had an opportunity to get these notes over to everybody, and I will. I'm in my office here for a while, so just to outline it really quick, the housing currently is not going to jive with our current UTEP. It's going to be something different of nature. So we were outlining a couple things. We want to determine basically what the public would like to see in a potential pilot program as far as housing. Get some input. We want it written too. So we want some written stuff. We'll put it out there to the public, and we'll get a little feedback. Create criteria for the housing projects. That's the big one. Creating a pilot for housing that mirrors the benefits afforded in the 581A. That's an exemption that can be formalized in the pilot program. It's implemented by the IDA with no arguable financial impact to the taxing jurisdictions. So it keeps us clean, okay? So we want to mimic that a little bit, and we'll get into that. Create a second housing pilot that encourages mixed-use development. That's something that we need to encourage around here, too, and that's what we spoke about that briefly before. Let's see. Investment strategy to encourage housing development. Tax increment financing. We're looking towards TIF. It diverts revenues to subsidize the developments, okay? There's pros and cons to everything, there's a lot of people with good input in this room. we're going to ask for everyone's input outside of governance. So we want to ensure that the but-for analysis is included, all other economic development benefits, third-party cost analysis, okay, and match tax benefits to all priorities in the community. Now, that's just a basic outline of where we got to begin and how we can create. And I say it once, I'll say it 100 times. This is not the entity to solve the housing crisis here in Ulster County. We're going to need a lot of help from this room up here and the government, okay? You know, Ulster County itself. So, but let's get something created here that we can get the ball rolling on our end to see what we can do. Joe, I recently reviewed the old housing policy, and I brought it up to Amber, and Amber checked on it. And I thought a while back we changed that language in there to reflect that the applicant would have to seek the approvals of all taxing jurisdictions. Amber's telling me that it still stands in there, that it says the agency. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I'll have to look at that, Mike. I know that there's a requirement, there's an opt-out, right, that we can opt out of it in terms of who's responsible. Let me double check that.
Okay. Yeah, because I think it's very important that the applicant secures all that info. They get all that information from the taxing jurisdictions or the approvals. Okay. I know we touched on that a lot, but I thought it was back in there. So moving ahead with governance, this is going to be the topic. You know, we're going to need help from our work group, also with housing, with Steve and Rashida. You know, you guys got a lot of knowledge on this. We're all going to pile it in at once and see what we can come up with here, and then we'll take it from there. As you know, coming in January, I believe the moratorium is back up to speak about for the housing. You know, once again, we discussed it. We can lift it at any time. I know we say 90 days, 3 months on the moratorium, but as this thing is created and it gets created, we can pull back on that. So, you know, I'm going to also suggest that we extend the housing moratorium another 90 days. We can do it in January, yeah. So I'm just giving you the approach on it. But other than that, that basically was our governance meeting. It went really well. We had great input. You know, Costume and Lynn are a wealth of knowledge. You know, I mean, I thoroughly enjoy everything they bring to the table. So, you know, it was a very good discussion. Along those lines, also, and I'm going to turn this back over to Amber again. We have the account services request for proposal, audio-visual request for proposals, and the technology service request for proposal. So Amber, if you will.
Sure. These requests for proposals were drafted with the all of the governance committee's work put into place. So what the board adopted for an organizational chart was taken into consideration, this hybrid structure where some services are contracted for, what those positions will be doing, how they will be servicing the board. So a lot of it was taken verbatim from the resolution adopting the organizational structure.
If it's the sense of the board that they want to handle all three at the same time, they could do that. If you want to do them separately, you can do them separately also.
Yeah, I say we
Do 'em all
take them all, do them all at once, so we might as well go through every one of them, okay? So we'll touch base on that, so.
This one in particular is very, very, very close, closely tied to that organizational resolution. So this one specifically, there was a lot of detail within the governance committee's work recommending that structure to the board for this particular position and these particular services. So this one is very, very closely mirrored. And I can kind of like briefly speak to the work that's included if you'd like. Okay.
What we're doing here is we have these three proposals out that the board needs to approve
Correct.
to move forward to go out and get proposals from vendors on these possible
Correct.
areas of service.
And one of the reasons that we only had two, but we split the last one because we were a little concerned that the audio visual would come across pretty clean, but maybe somebody didn't want to maintain our website with the IT. So Amber broke them out and we split them into three. So yeah, these are just proposals, requests for, proposals to get people in so we can start taking a hard look at, the services that we're going to need. So
Somebody wanted to bid for the two services together, they can do that as well.
correct.
Sorry, I'll repeat. If some entity wants to bid for the proposals together, the last two, audiovisual and website, they can do that as well.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
one thing I think we should point out, we did open it up from the scope standpoint to even younger companies or younger entities such that they can also participate in this. So we made it a lot more open than having something for an older entity only.
Great.
So can we get a motion to accept the three proposals?
I'll move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank
Great
you.
work.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And Chair, that would conclude my governance
Thank you,
report.
Mike. Thank you. All right, moving on to old business. Administrative support. Extending the conversation about the good work the governance committee did on our organization and moving forward and the types of positions that we needed to support the work of the IDA. The last several months, we have been interviewing potential candidates for the administrative assistant position through Norman Staffing. The board had approved that contract with Norman Staffing to do just that. And after interviewing several candidates, we have a candidate that we would like to bring on board after the first of the year through Norman Staffing, Lisa Purcell. So I would like to have a motion to approve the hiring of Lisa Purcell as our administrative assistant for 20 hours a week through Norman Staffing.
Chair, I'll make that motion.
A second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right. I'm going to call your attention to the status of the Kingstonian on page 37 of your packet. As you know, the Kingstonian project has not due to ongoing lawsuits that they are appealing and working through the court system. And as such, we would like to propose that the agreement with the Kingstonian, actually, Joe, do you want to walk us through what we're going to do here? Just to make sure I've got all the terminology correct.
Sure, happy to do so.
Thank you.
You have a resolution before you on page 37, and the meat of the resolution is on page, is on page 51, where, as the chair indicated, due to litigation, supply chain, and COVID issues outside the control of the company, they are not able to meet the benchmark dates contained in the original closing documents for this transaction. The company has sent us a letter which is attached to the resolution requesting consideration and accommodation by the IDA, reflecting the situation that the company finds itself in. They essentially made a request to push these benchmark dates back approximately 2 years. That's outlined in Exhibit C to the resolution. We have also, based on discussions with the chair and one member of the IDA, we added some additional conditions, and that's described in Section 3 of the resolution, where in consideration for that accommodation to the project applicant, we would modify the amount held in escrow required to undertake the construction of the project. We would return that to the applicant because, as indicated in the modification, the initiation of construction has been delayed. They'll have to make that payment when they do initiate the project. We also are requiring the payment of an administrative fee that will be non-refundable in the amount of $110,000, which mirrors the amount that was paid on an interim basis last year. And then, in order to continue our monitoring and review and administration of the project, we will require the company to provide 6-month reports with respect to the status of the project. And again, that's all outlined in Section 3 of the resolution. What we will do on assuming that the board moves forward with this resolution, what we will do as your council is we'll enter into a tolling / standstill agreement with the project applicant outlining these dates and the payment of these fees so that it's clear and no misunderstanding as to what the current status of the transaction is. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Chair. If there's any comments or questions, I'm more than happy to entertain those.
Thank you, thank you. So, as we were saying, the Kingstonian has not been able to break ground, so no work is being done currently. So it seemed that, given the circumstances, that we wanted to work with them and find a way forward as we're moving through the rest of some of the lawsuits and other obstacles that they have found, to work with them so that, when they're ready to break ground, we're here and going to work with them. So we think that these provisions and changes make a lot of sense given where they are right now and not able to begin the project. So if I could, I'd ask for a motion on approving the resolution for the modifications relating to the Kingstonian Development Project.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Any discussion?
I think my objections are the same. I think that these last few years have been difficult for a lot of businesses, and I think that the obstacles the project has faced are not different than other entities and other projects. So I'm not opposed to extending the deadlines, but I am opposed to the returning of the escrow funds. That's the thing.
Okay, thank you. And just to be clear, what is in the escrow is money that the Kingstonian project put in there for a service to monitor the work site for us through Low Key Brill. And because there is no project going on currently, there are no costs associated with monitoring the construction site through Low Key Brill. And as such, it seemed reasonable to send the $44,000 back to the Kingstonian, and then when they do break ground, if they break ground, then that $44,000 would then again be returned to escrow to cover the cost of Low Key Brill. I just wanted to be clear what we're actually doing there. Anyone else? Okay, all in favor? Do we have to do roll call, or can we just do you prefer roll call? Okay. All right, roll call. Diana Einen, yes. Lynn Archer is present, can't vote, but Lynn, would you like to weigh in on it?
Yes.
Okay, Mike Ham,
Yes.
Stephen Kelly,
Yes.
Rashida Tyler.
If there were two resolutions, I would vote yes for extending the deadlines, but I would not vote for the other. And so
All
I'm
right.
going to say no.
No, okay. Thank you. Rachel Silverman
Yes.
and Kostu Wahal.
Yes.
Thank you. It's passed. All right, moving on, status of pending projects. Joe?
That report is described on page 58. There's been no change since the report of the last meeting. What I will do is follow up with the Ellenville project, the Cresco Labs project, and have a more detailed report for you at the January meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Okay. All right. And Rachel, public engagement and education plan.
Thank you.
meetings with him, went back and forth on our plan, making a few requests, and it's been distributed. If you haven't read it yet, I encourage you to do it. I'm not going to go through it in detail now, mindful of time. I'm just going to point out two things that I think are worth, if not discussing, at least thinking about between now and the next meeting. One being the goals that we set, which is laid out right at the beginning. We sort of broke them out into 4 areas, the goals for the plan. So one is to reestablish the brand of the IDA. The timing of it is nice. The new board at the time we started this project, and now with the new year kicking off. That'll divide into talking points, which are an objective of the plan later on. You'll see when you read it, so that we are consistent with how we describe what we do and who we do it for. Standpoint. Increasing interest. So, we sort of want to market what we advance the opportunities the IDA can. There is also a laid out long-term plan. I would point out in the plan is on page 21. Steve, to pull out action steps. They're in what are called phase 1 and phase 2. Things and because it's just not something to be able to maintain here, and we didn't get too much into the weeds of that because we weren't sure who the administrative assistant would be and who the AD will be, and depending on their comfort level with some of this work, we would be farming out less or keeping more in. And by that, I mean things like updates to the website. So we're going to have the website refinished, and then if we have the skills and time internally, maintaining it can be done by our team or someone outside, as an example. If we just want to look quickly at maybe phase 1, because those are the things we're talking about doing first and foremost. First and foremost, I'm talking paid. Oh, is it not working? Sorry. When we talk about the things we're doing at the end of our projects, we go back and we have these pretty amazing stories to tell, and we haven't taken advantage of telling those stories the way we talk about them here, the way we see them. So we're going to start putting those together. We're going to talk about a potential ticker graphic on the website. This is sort of a specific way to make the website fun, and I know since we're putting out an RFP for the website, we'll go into the weeds on website ideas, but there are a number of them in Steve's plan as well. Things like changing the press section to news. It's just a more user-friendly and up-to-date way to refer to that information on the website. Requesting quotes from the board members. So something we can do now as the board, start to think about how we want to be engaged with this communication plan. When we come up with the talking points, it'll probably be easier for everyone, but everyone will sort of have their own language and tagline for why we are on the board and what we hope to accomplish. Thinking about op-eds. So this one is probably actually in the phase 2 of it. I'm not sure why it's in phase 1, but starting to think about the sort of messaging separate from the talking points that we as the board can put our names on and put out there, either as a group or individually. We can do that through op-eds. We can do that through public speaking engagements and the like. Thinking about these talking points. So the talking points that we'll probably work with a PR agency to develop are going to be hits. They're going to be short and sweet. They're going to appear on postcards. They'll appear on the website, and they will be everybody's quick 1, 2, 3s for what we do. The biggest test, I think, sometimes for the talking points, or if other people can tell us our talking points, then we've delivered them well. We do not currently meet that mark. And an updated media list. So one of the things we talked about with Steve was maintaining a media list for all of the work we're doing. Media list would be a living document. It'll be ongoing. So as we develop all of these things in phase one, we will probably be learning more and more. We're getting more and more contacts in the media. And I think our old list hadn't been used a bunch. So as we start to use it after each push, we're going to get a whole bunch of updated information, new people, new outlets. So very quickly, that's the sort of stuff that's in phase one. And I think what we want to do is, if we're willing to adopt the proposed plan now, we can start to think about what we want to do and in what order after the new year. I don't think we're going to be doing much until the admin and ED get identified, but that's sort of the plan. Oh, and I should mention that Steve, who is fabulous to work with, provides the plan, but he's not the PR agency to execute any of this. So it would be a different group, outside group, that we'd be working with going forward.
Great work to the working group. Thank you, everyone that's on the committee. Yeah, I was
Hit
going to
me.
say, any questions?
Ask me
discussion?
all the questions you want.
So the projects, and they're listing on projects on 65, why don't they put CHBE in there?
On 65,
Champlain Hudson Power.
Oh, yeah.
oh, I don't know what public source he used, because we didn't provide anything.
Okay.
All these other ones are clients of the IDA, except for those.
Yeah, okay.
Except for that one.
Oh, yeah. That came before us, but we never moved forward with it.
Can I add a couple of comments, please?
Yeah, sure, Lim.
This was a great plan, and Steve and the team, I think we had really good interaction, and everybody had input. I think that when you start to look at all of what is being recommended, it is a huge plateful. And one of the things that we talked about as we're transitioning to a new organization is maybe some consideration of, sooner rather than later, putting some kind of RFP out there for a short-term assignment to help us get some of this stuff off the ground. Because I think if we try to do this, we all have jobs in addition to what we do here on the board. We've got a new admin person coming on. We haven't hired an ED yet. We will get behind the curveball if we don't think about potentially bringing on a small PR group to help get it started, to help kind of craft the detail of our messaging, etc. And then as the staff comes on, figuring which pieces, which jobs can accommodate some of these elements. So I feel like, again, another kind of multi-pronged approach to how we develop our messaging and communication, how we assign it through different staff members as we start to develop that, is a way of keeping us moving forward and not waiting and then getting behind, the curve on our communication strategy. Just a thought.
Thanks, Lim. Anyone else?
If I may piggyback on that, actually, that's kind of what I was thinking as well, that if we jive it and marry it with the design, and it's reflective of a lot of that, actually. And I'm not certain where we are in terms of the stage of a potential RFP. Perhaps that needs to be discussed and figured out as well, the potential RFP that Lynn, you mentioned. However, I think I really like it the way it's laid out. The only place I believe we might want to make an addition, and it might fall under the additional entities in the audience section, is as we try to develop this, it's not only addressing the businesses or community
Sure.
in Ulster County, but outside as well. Because a lot of the proposals potentially might come from outside, in fact. And,
But I think, too, the piece of that, too, that I think is really important about this plan, and I think it's a great plan, is that it is public engagement and education.
Right.
And so the engagement also is with other key stakeholders who the IDA works with. And so I think that kind of piggybacks off
Yep.
of your comment that this work, too, is really about helping the public and our other key stakeholders understand, who we are, what we can do, what we can't do, how we can support businesses here in Ulster County, attract businesses, and frankly also help existing businesses that we don't often talk about as much in the county.
that's right, and also how we collaborate with the other entities as you have laid out.
Mhm.
And one example will be Economic Development Agency.
Yep.
And just to pick an example, not that specifically, but yeah.
I
happened to read it all, and
I did.
I got to tell you something. I thought it was real impressive. You guys did great work with that.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
It is definitely a very thorough plan, and I like in particular that it can be chunked as we need. So if we're going to do an RP for the website and get that stuff up and running, we're not dependent on other pieces of this, except for maybe some of the key messaging points. But that was by design.
Is there some element of this that should be included in the website RFP?
You
Well,
know,
I think
Lynn,
some of it is
you mentioned that,
automatic.
and I think it might actually be by default
Mm-hmm.
be a part of it.
Yep.
Okay.
Right, because the website RFP, what I read through is going to be asking someone to come in and knock off a couple of things that we already talked about on the website. And, sort of depending what that looks like at the time, if we have more to include, we will, but we don't need to.
Right.
Joe, do we just have to approve this plan so we can move forward and actually operationalize it, to put the resources to it?
Yes, I think a voice vote
Okay.
on that also.
Great,
yes.
okay.
So moved.
All right, I need a motion to
I'll second it.
accept this plan.
He moved.
Moved,
I'll
second, thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, and thank you to the working group, really, really nice work, and Steve Janak did a really great job as well, so thank you all. All right, moving on to new business, we had moved Zinc 8 up to the agenda, so we'll move on to annual site visits, and Amber, if you want to help us out with that.
I'd also just like to point out that in the RFP for technological services, it does have a specific statement in there that says maintain and implement the website in accordance with the board's communication and branding plan. So that would be consistent with this plan. For the site visits, the IDA has a policy that requires a site visit to each and every open project. The policy is specific to this IDA. You do have the option to amend your policy if you would like to do a sample of projects for the current year, considering the administrative load, turnover, etc. The questionnaire is only 3 questions, very broad questions. Each visit takes about 45 minutes. It can be conducted by Zoom. We do need to have them finished by January 31st, and we have a letter for annual reporting compliance that is ready to go out to each open project or projects closed during the year to collect all of the information that goes into your required AVO reporting, which is due March 31st. So sticking to that January 31st deadline really is very important. There's about 30.
So if we do a modified schedule, we can do half of those?
Now, they could be set up, we set them up all different times, too. It was pretty comfortable for everybody for their
Could you
schedule.
describe what that entails?
Basically, go ahead, Chair.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
so the site visit is an opportunity for the board to meet with the project group, and you will have information. There is actually a form and information that they have to provide to the IDA that Amber has already sent out letters and is collecting that, right? So we review where the project is, we look at jobs, but the opportunity really is for the board to sit down and review the year. How was the year for the applicant? What were some of the challenges, how are things going in general? How can we be more helpful? Is there another opportunity? Like, in which ways can we continue to help support the project, if any? And really, it's just an opportunity to touch base. It's also really important, too, because we're getting this data to make sure that there's also compliance to what the project and the pilot requires of them. So as board members, we are required, I believe it's at least 1, if not 2, that we have to participate. We each have to participate in 1, if not 2, of these site visits. And it really really is an important opportunity for us to be in touch, and it's frankly too, it's relationship building, which I think is really important for the IDA to do. And so we have until January 31st to do this. We can do it via Zoom with the projects, which probably how most of them will happen. We have 30 current projects, so I think one of the questions is, given all the transition and the timing and things that have been going on, do we want to modify it that we're not doing all 30, but we're doing 15 or 20 of them? So
And this is once a year?
yes.
I'll just weigh in, Chair, if you don't mind. I mean, it's very important for the board to do this. With respect to the number that you do, I think that's up to the board. I mean, I will tell you, speaking based on our other IDA clients, it's much less, the number is much lower. I mean, they probably look at 5 or 6 a year, and what they do is they rotate so that they see everybody in 3 or 4 years. All 30 is, I mean, if you do the math, if you're trying to get it done by the end of January, that's 1 a day, including weekends. But again, the important thing is to document that you have done some, because if you look at any of the ABO or Office of State Comptroller audits of IDAs, their big theme over the last 3 or 4 years has been administration and monitoring of projects. So, for instance, picking a number, doing 5, you would certainly check the box as long as there was some recognition that you were going to follow up on the others over a period of time. That's the important thing.
We pick a certain number for the purpose of fulfilling the requirement, but that we also make a commitment, though, doesn't preclude us from not doing all of them, frankly, through the year. And I think actually that should be a goal for the IDA, that we've touched base with all of our projects over the year, but that we modify the number this year, just for this year.
With that, the only question I would have is, how do we think about selecting the names? Is it random selection, or do we want to prioritize certain ones? And that'd be a consideration, I think.
And what about the prior year? I mean, the prior board for last year?
We did them.
Did they do any last year?
Yeah, we did all of them.
Did them all.
Did them all.
I think we ought to do them all and commit to doing them all. We may not be able to get them all done by the end of January, but I think I think that's a reasonable relationship that we should be maintaining with the projects.
Any of the IDAs, any criteria that they used to identify which of the projects that they had?
Based on my memory, it's pulling names out of a hat. It was a random selection.
I think we can do a little better than that. Yeah.
Random
Okay.
selection method.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right.
I think 5 is low-hanging fruit. Home run.
I think a good goal would be 10 at a minimum, and try to get at least half of them done. I think should be our goal.
Agreed. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Okay.
By the end of January.
Yeah. So Amber is going to be coordinating, because you can imagine scheduling not only our schedules, but also all the project schedules.
We just have a couple of people in each one, right? We don't know.
Usually,
No.
Steve, it would be maybe
Amber
Amber's on
and-
with you.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Yep. Yep.
And
And it's
she leads
3
the
questions.
charge, and then
So how do we select which half we want to do? Every other one? I mean,
Random.
down the list?
yeah, we could do that.
Well, here's the other thing. We probably also would get people to respond quicker than others. So I think maybe the call goes out and see who responds to the call and get them on the calendar.
Maybe 4 or 5 that just doesn't respond.
Won't respond at all. So I think that's the way to start, and we'll see where we are. And we'll just have to keep in communication where we are with different projects.
It moves pretty quick. And everybody got them done.
Yeah, we got them done. And the other thing I would add, too, it's not that we won't have any insight into the project, because they do have to fill out quite a bit of information required that Amber has sent out to them. So we will still gather all that information. So it's not like any of the projects won't have a touchstone with us at the end of the year for an update on the status of the project.
And this is different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Loki Bill's looking at on construction site construction.
Campbell pretty much touched base on. Yeah, I got a question on this, and this.
Yeah, I enjoy doing them. You learn a lot about the projects and the people there, so it's a great opportunity for the board. Uh huh.
And two
We
projects
need a
have reached out
voice
and we're
vote to
excited have the
amend
site
our
visits.
policy to. Okay. All right. All right. Can I get a motion to amend our policy just this year for the number of site visits that we will do a minimum of 10 and up to 15?
I'll move.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right. And that adjourns our meeting today. Thank you, everyone. And we'll move on to the CRC. Maybe take a 2-minute, 3-minute break, and we'll roll back. Thank you. Did we lose Rashida? Lanny is still there?
I'm here.
Thank you. All right. I think we're missing Rashida. She's still here. We do have a quorum. All right. I would like to call to order the Ulster County Capital Resource Corporation meeting. Roll call. Diane Einen here. Lynn Archer is present remotely. Mike Ham.
Here.
Steve Kelly.
Here.
Rashida Tyler is in the building. She'll be joining us momentarily. Rachel Silverman.
Here.
And Kastu Waha.
Here.
Thank you. Mission statement. All right. Where is my mission statement? You would think I know this by heart. The mission of the Ulster County Capital Resource Corporation is to promote community and economic development in Ulster County in ways that complement the work of Ulster County, primarily through issuing and selling bonds for nonprofit institutions. All right. I would call your attention to page 3 of your meeting packet. Please take a few moments to look at the minutes from our October 19th board meeting. Should be November. When someone is ready, if I could have a motion to approve these minutes.
Chair, I'll motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Ham. A second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. All in favor, approve?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, public comment, agenda items. Okay, moving on. Chair's report. I would just say that my comments during the chair report should be reflected in the IDA meeting. Finances, accounting, and administrative update. Amber?
I'll just draw your attention to the shared service agreement, which is located on page 6. This is for the CRC to reimburse the IDA for shared expenditures which cannot be easily distinguished or separated, including things such as insurance and website, at a rate of 5% of the total cost.
And Joe, do we need to vote on this, or does it just roll from the IDA that we passed this?
I think given that it does impact the CRC, I would
All right.
recommend a voice vote.
Okay. All right. Can I have a motion to accept the services agreement?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks. All right. Old business administrative support. As we discussed in the IDA meeting, we have a final candidate for the administrative assistant position, Lisa Purcell. So I would like to have a motion that we approve the hiring through Norman Staffing of Lisa Purcell.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. New business. We have the shared services agreement with the IDA. We just approved that. We also have accounting services request for proposal, audiovisual request for proposal, and technological services request for proposal that were all presented in the IDA meeting that was outlined and discussed. So I'd like a motion to accept all of these proposals to put them out for RFP to get proposals from potential vendors.
Motion.
So I have a question on that. And my question is, really isn't the Ulster County Capital Resources Corporation going to be buying those for 5% of their cost from the IDA? So why would they be making the decision if they're going to be, I mean, they can't make a separate decision than the IDA.
I guess you're.
Yeah, technically.
Well,
Yeah.
we could.
I mean, it's not necessary for them to do that because they've already agreed to the shared services agreement, which says that they're going to share at a 5% share.
Yeah.
So I
Good
don't
point.
think we need to vote on that at all.
Thank you.
That's a great point.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. All right. It is off the table then for the CRC. All right. And with that,
Before you adjourn, would you like to record your vote for the approval of the minutes?
thank you, Amber.
Okay. Would you like to record a vote for the approval of the shared services agreement?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Amber.
Amber.
And also make note that Rashida Tyler is here Yes, thank you, President. All right, with that, we are adjourning the CRC meeting, and I just want to wish everyone a very happy and safe holiday season, and we will see you in the new year. And thank you for all your good work this year.
You too.